Kiss, Marry, Kill.
Yeah.
Alexa, Siri, or Cortana?
Oh, Alexa, Siri. Honestly, I don't use any of the three. So that is a rough one. I don't own Apple products, so I could kill off Siri and it wouldn't have any effect on my life. Cortana, with the possibilities of what we talked about, OpenAI being a Microsoft product, is what you'd want to marry. If they actually make Cortana capable of giving you useful answers when you type it in, that's cool. Alexa would be the Kiss part, because Amazon has some very sketchy policies with their collection of data in terms of what they do with it in terms of practices and getting data and pushing out the original people who had it. So they have a demonstrated history of predatory behavior with what they collect and how they use it for their own purposes. So the simulation proposal is basically going, oh, our computers are getting more advanced. Therefore, at one point, would we attempt to simulate our reality ourselves and put things within it? Therefore, if we're continuing to advance and we project that infinitely in the future, could that also mean that somebody that is more advanced than us made a reality and put us inside of it? Now, the interesting thing about that discussion is most of the physicists and people I consider experts in the area believe that there is no testable way to prove whether or not that would be true. In most simulations, you would not design as much uselessness as you could judge functionally exists in our real reality. You would not need that to accomplish a minor goal. So if we were a simulation, it would be the laziest of simulations. Now, the interesting thing with AI is it's everywhere. I know people across probably all faculties at some point where often machine learning, but other aspects of AI are actively occurring in their research. It has turned into an application tool that if you are doing data analysis, there is a possibility that machine learning or AI can be an aspect of how you take that forward. Across biology, humanities, I've seen people do it in kinesiology. So it's everywhere. Inside of computer science, we're almost going through a transition between generations of our faculty members. Our most recent head, Dr. Jacobs, did what was known as evolutionary computing. He actually has both a biology background, a medicine background, and computer science. But on the computer science side, he did evolutionary computing, which is taking patterns from biology and evolution and using those patterns in AI to do things. Another longer-term faculty member, Dr. Denzinger, is something called multi-agent systems and distributed AI, which involves sometimes when you solve a problem with one conceptual problem solver, that limits you to that person's worldview and explorations and their biases and types. So often we solve problems by having multiple people involved. But how do you bring together multiple solutions to a problem or multiple paths to solve it to get one final thing? Recently, we've hired a whole bunch of new faculty members in the computer science department that are doing very interesting research in a lot of the neural network deep learning side of things. We've got deep learning profs like Dr. Farid Maleki and Dr. Kitty Ovens, who do a lot with neural networks, particularly they have backgrounds in medical imaging. We also have a newer faculty member in the last couple of years, Dr. Richard Zhao, who does what he calls serious games, which is making games for like learning and adults and people using games for more than just entertainment purposes, but secondary purposes as well. And computer games use a lot of AI within them, often a lot more of the symbolic techniques. So a lot of his experience is in that other category that firmly has to do things like figure out how does an NPC move around an environment, how does a bot act as another player in a game with you, how do you figure out if a game you make is solvable or not. Because you obviously don't want to play a game with a level that's randomly generated for you that nobody can solve. It'd be very frustrating, so we have to make something that solves it as a computer to decide if we should actually give it to you as a problem. So it's being used all over the place now. where not only in computer science, but as I mentioned, humanities and other areas, there is AI research happening that is all across campus. I have a 502 student who is essentially designing an NFL coaching tool. And what he's designing is a tool in which the coach could essentially put out what paths they want their players to do and put where they think the defense might be, and the tool will actually generate a response to that play. And they can adjust the play and see how the response would change. And that was an undergrad research project over the fall and now the winter semester. I'm also involved in research with the Taylor Institute. We're working on a concept known as common humanity, which is the idea that emotionally people gain benefits if they can interrelate with other people on something that is common. And theoretically, there's this opportunity, if we can properly create an environment of common humanity, that you will see, hopefully, students go, oh yeah, I know I'm talking to a bot, but I was engaging with it for fun because eventually it said I might meet a new student at the end that also could be my friend for the rest of my degree or something, and we'll be able to see, hopefully, through this study and make a better learning environment. And for the future, maybe learn how we can design these things in different ways to change how education looks for students in courses like that. Outside of the increasing aspect to it that most modern AI is getting deployed in connection with human consequences, which means that I personally find it impossible to teach AI myself ethically or morally without discussing the consequences of its deployment. In the past, AI has often been taught from a more theoretical math point of view. It's like taking a physics course that teaches you how to do the reactions that could happen inside of a nuclear bomb. And you could teach that from a point of view that is completely physical based. But because this type of technology has turned into something that the average computer science could put inside of an application they make for your phone, for example, I've taught a course that was a crash course on neural networks. I taught it in about 3 weeks, upper year course, and I went, I'm not teaching you details of it, but I'm showing you in a library you can import that can do handwriting recognition or image recognition or something like that. So you could put it in an application. I will teach you the basics of this tool, but honestly, half of that 3 weeks was discussing, do you understand how this truly works, how this patterns work, how it's exploitable, what are the ethics of it, what laws might exist, all that. Because it is so consequential now, if you're naive in the deployment of this, you are having consequences on people's lives in a way that is more important than it used to be. I don't think it can be firmly separated as just a math or theory concept anymore based on its impact. A proper student should be taught from the start the consequences of what they're doing. It's kind of like if you taught a student how to make a radioactive material. If you're going to teach them that, there's no way they should leave that course without an ethical discussion of the consequences of such material existing, or how to make a poison. Or we used to have a course, I don't believe we teach anymore, that taught you how to make a computer virus. You should not be capable of completing such a course without considering the consequences of your actions and how it relates to the overall community that you exist in outside of your academic course.